So you checked your alerts tab and found a new mission called Arbitration. I'm going to teach you on the many ways on how to do it. This is because they rotate between several different endless mission types every hour. They also have some added difficulty to where if you go into bleed out, you die instantly. If you fail or complete an arbitration, you cannot do another one until the next rotation. There's a special enemy exclusive to arbitrations, and they also have a unique twist with some of the missions. The reason you'd even want to do these is because the rotation drops can give you arcanes, mods, and a considerable amount of sculptures and endo, if you don't already have a mod drop chance booster. There's also a special item shop at the Arbiters of Hexus at almost every relay, which also happens to have Grindel's normal pieces in case you didn't know. Anyway, let's start off with our first one. Survivals. Alright. Survival is the easiest mission type that you can get out of arbitration. Why? Well, you already know why. You completed your star chart. I expect you to know what a survival is. But just so we get our priorities straight, Objective 1, kill stuff. Objective 2, don't die. Now that second objective is a bit trickier than the first, so it's best to know what we're up against so that way we don't screw up Objective 2. This is the part where we get to those aforementioned special enemies. They're called arbitration drones. Arbitration drones have very special properties. For starters, they act as shield drones, but instead of granting nearby enemies shields, they grant nearby enemies straight up immunity from all attacks. And when I say all, I mean all, so you have to target them. Not to mention, they also have a unique property where they have shield gating. This is just a neat little detail I wanted to mention. It's kind of cool. Now the way to combat these is very few. You can't use abilities to kill them, so you have to use weapons or companions to kill the drones, with the special exception of Zephyr's Tornadoes. Zephyr's Tornadoes technically distribute weapon damage rather than making it ability damage. That's the only reason why they work. So just shoot the nados and you'll kill drones. If something else does work, put it in the comments, but I'm pretty sure Zephyr is the only one that kills arbitration drones with their ability. And before you ask, arbitration drones cannot immunize each other, so don't worry about that. While we're on the subject of arbitration drones, let's talk about dying. If you die, and if you have teammates, you can be revived, but only through the tokens that arbitration drones drop, only when someone is dead. This puts a lot of strain on your teammates because picking up coins reduces your health, and it gets worse the more coins you carry. But all you need is 5 in order to res someone. Important fact as well that I'm certain that most randos don't know: you can combine coins between players. For example, if I'm holding 3 and another person is holding 2, we can just stand next to the dead person's corpse and res them. Now just because you can be rezzed doesn't mean that dying is a little more acceptable. It is not. Because sometimes the debuff that you get from picking up coins does not wear off. It is permanently attached to you, even if you die and get rezzed. So essentially, every time you pick up a coin to res somebody, you are rolling dice that could possibly have you end up with a fraction of your health for the rest of the arbitration. This is why it's useful to have an Oberon with the Phoenix Renewal augment, or a Revenant with a Mesmer skin build for the whole team. But at this point in the video, I feel like I'm hyping these guys up way too much. These guys are pretty easy to kill with just weapons alone. You just push them over and they die. It's not that hard. One final note though, these kids drop Vitus Essence, which is used for purchasing goods at that item shop I talked about way earlier. There's more about survivability and I'll cover in the next segment, but for now let's get the team comp down. My personal recommendation would be at least 1 Zaku, at least 1 Oberon, and or Revenant, and an optional loot frame. Honestly, the rest is just free game as long as it's good at surviving. Well, that's it for survival. Let's move on to the next. Interception, another easy one. Interception rotations are roughly 4 minutes, making them faster than survival rotations, if done flawlessly, which means you have to have all the points captured at all times. Now, RIP for the people that are watching this video and have 0 friends, but I would recommend at least having 3 people before queuing up the missions. This is mainly for your sake because I wouldn't really trust randos with doing anything that requires more than 2 neurons. But anyway, if you're running a 3-man squad, you want to have one person in said squad to go between 2 points that are preferably low on traffic and close to each other. That, or you could have the whole team slap down a Spectre each at 1 point and call it a day there. Just make sure those Spectres can heal themselves though, that's kind of important for longevity. Now since I am going to be recommending Zaku for this one, I want to go over some things about his third abilities, specifically Gaze and Accuse. No one really cares about that third one. Gaze armor strips enemies in a radius around the target that you gazed. This is important for having his second ability kill in a reasonable time frame, but it can be nullified by arbitration drones just flying past it. So a way to combat this is by using Accuse. Accuse turns enemies into friends, and it cannot be nullified by arbitration drones. So by using Accuse on your desired target before using Gaze on them, you can have that Gaze zone for as long as it lasts, unless a nullifier walks past it, which in that case, I don't know. Anyway, the team composition is going to be looking like 2 kill frames, 1 medic, and an optional loot frame. That's if you want to. But there is one more strategy that I want to talk to you about. This one, you sacrifice most of your ground drop loot for just straight up safety. This is to ensure you get the fastest runs as possible. So you're looking for more rotation loot rather than ground loot. But first, I want to ask you a question. Tell me.
お前はこれで誰を殺すつもりなんだ。敵。お前の敵は誰なんだ。よく聞け、トルフィン。お前に敵などいない。
You're my friend now.
傷つけて良いものなどどこにもいない。
Team strategy. Pacifism prime. Team comp. 3 Zakus, 1 life insurance. Arbitration defenses are pretty good, except for the defense target itself. You could get stupid fast rotations with this game mode, possibly even the fastest you can see in Arbitration. But if you do poorly, you could get the worst rotation times you'll ever see in Arbitration as well. But I want to start with giving you options to help protect the defense target, because since the defense target is mobile, you can't use conventional defense frames. So I took the time to see which frames work best. Here's what I found. Ashe doesn't work, but Ivara does. Why? I don't really know. Protea's shield orbs work on the target, but the target doesn't have shield gating, which means it's going to progressively lose health every time one of those shield orbs go out. And before you ask, no, Dispensary does not heal the target. Wisp can heal the target, and the motes last, but you're going to have to chase the target and put motes on them all the time. Trinity is going to be the best at healing the target. With enough strength, she can heal 100% of the target's health, including its shields, as well as providing damage resistance up to 75% for as long as the ability lasts. Now Oberon's an interesting one because he can heal the target as well as give it armor, as long as the target steps through some grass once. Though unfortunately his Phoenix Renewal Augment will not save the target. He still is a very solid choice compared to the others though. Limbo, the ex-god of defense missions, yes I will die on that hill, is pretty useful when you use his subsume ability, Banish. combined with its augment, Rift Haven. This will heal the target as well as keep it invulnerable to most forms of damage, but not Eximus abilities. Also, be careful that you don't put enemies in the limbo with the target, but if you do, you can just kill them with Warframe abilities. Now, a lot of the stuff I mentioned, I'm not going to use. That's just food for thought in case you guys have any better ideas. And keep in mind that I don't think I've covered everything that works on the target either. But what I found best suited for this mission would be a Trinity running Banish with the augment. Oh yeah, one more thing, the target does not scale over time. That's why I encourage the idea of having a babysitter in your team. But that's only if you plan on staying in the mission for a long period of time. If you're shooting for around 100 waves, you can definitely just settle for a wisp instead of a babysitter. This is so everybody can have some health as well as some added fire rate, which is really nice when you're spamming explosive weapons everywhere. Anyway, I'm going to start picking up the pace a bit more and start talking about what you should be running for the rest of the team. Now sadly, I'm not going to tell you anything outside of common knowledge with this one. The meta players really hit the nail on the head with this. But just in case you aren't aware, the meta strategy is having the rest of your team running around the map nuking everything in sight with their weapons, rather than Warframes. This is because of a certain enemy we discussed earlier. But this is not to say that your Warframe choice doesn't matter. In fact, it matters a lot when you're trying to make weapons good. This is why the top picks for Warframes are either Mirage or Saren, but mostly Mirage. This is because her first ability gives you a ton of multi-shot, and on top of that, she also has a really good damage buffing ability. Now as for the weapon of choice, that's widely considered to be Kuva Ogress. Make sure you're at least running Napalm Nightwatch and a faction damage mod on it. Now the one caveat to this strategy is location. With most maps you should be able to manage, but with certain maps like you might want to consider waiting for the next arbitration rotation, or you exit the mission before the first rotation and then jump back in hoping for another map. Oh yes, quick side note, you could run a Speed Nova in place for one of your Mirages. This is so you can apply damage vulnerability to all the enemies on the map, as well as speed them up. The reason you would even want to speed them up is so they can come to the center of the map faster, thus making them easier to kill. But keep in mind, this also means they can kill things faster. And when you see 35 enemies hyped up on Go-Go Juice wailing on the target, you'll be glad you listened to me when I recommended Banish. Okay, I think that's good. Let's get on to the next segment. Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure I'm missing something. Man, you know how long that would have taken me to find that if I didn't script this? Anyway, there's more about survivability and I'll cover in the next segment. Yeah, what I meant by that was companions. Let's get on with that. Pets are only meant for three things: killing, looting, and keeping you alive. With arbitrations, that last one is going to be the most important, especially if you don't have any room for a medic in your team. I'm going to narrow down the search for you so you know the best pets to run. Killing. What I could think of for killing is either a Helios or a Hound. Keep in mind with Sentinels, Sacrifice does not work at all, because it puts you in bleed out, and as mentioned before, when you go into bleed out, you die instantly. However, you could use Loyal Companion instead. It's pretty decent, but it's not going to compete with any companion that's solely meant for keeping you alive. Looting. You could run Oxalis in an arbitration if you're weird, or just any drone with spare parts on it, but neither of those are going to hold a candle to Smita Kaveh. Survivability. There's many good options for this category, but the most effective are going to be Vulpaphilas, specifically Panzer and Sly. You could pick either or though. Panzer's gonna spread viral, and Sly is gonna give you great value evasion when it's dead. But make sure you're always running Marchiar Symbiosis when you're running a Vulpaphila. This will have the Vulpaphila take the fall for you whenever you die, and it grants you immunity frames for a short period of time. Alright, well that was a good lightning round. Let's move on to Excavation. Excavations used to be one of the safest and fastest arbitrations that you could do, but ever since the Eximus rework, they've been a lot more challenging compared to what they once were. But hey, let's start off with why this mission type is good. First off, it's actually hard to lose in this mission type, because the only way you can fail this mission is by exhausting all of your self revives. It's not even a matter of how many excavators you lose. You can lose as many as you want. The second perk is that the rotation times are actually pretty good. Conditionally. It really just depends on whether the game chooses to spawn in those battery carriers or not, which is just really annoying. But that's it for the pros of this mission type. To start off with the cons, I didn't mention all the conditions for good rotation times. The other, more important condition is keeping the excavators alive! The reason I said excavations used to be good before the Xmas rework is because after the Xmas rework, Xmas have abilities, and you cannot protect those excavators from abilities at all. However, there is one unique ability here that I think is worth mentioning, and that ability's name is Silence. Silence for the most part is an unremarkable ability, but it does come with a unique mechanic to where any enemy caught within its radius cannot use special abilities, and this heavily includes Xmas. However, the small downside with Silence is that you cannot recast it while its duration is still going, so there's like a millisecond in between recasts that the Xmas can and will use their abilities, so be careful about that. Anyway, other cool things. Loot frames such as Necros, Korra, Hydroid, Ivara, surprisingly, and any frame using Orgaze is actually pretty viable in this mission because they can dupe battery spawns from battery characters. And yeah, batteries are essential and they can also heal Excavator's shields, but they can't really heal its health bar, so let's look into what works for that. From a quick wiki search, I found that there's a lot of solutions out there, but only a few of them are actually worth trying. One of those few options is Trinity. This is because she can do the max amount of healing that you can do to an Excavator, which in case you're interested is 500 health over 5 seconds, as well as provide damage resistance up to 50%, and both of these are just coming from her 4th ability alone. But if you don't care all that much for damage resistance, there is a debatably better option, and that option is named Sanctity Magistar. With Sanity Mangekistan, you can heal the same rate as Trinity, which is pretty freaking good considering the fact that it only takes up a weapon slot rather than a whole Warframe. The downsides to this is, of course, it has no damage resistance, it has a shorter range than Trinity, and you also need to specifically hit an enemy, not kill them, in order to proc its healing. So just weigh your options carefully here. But I want to get a bit more in depth with Magistar for a quick second. I tested with it a bit and I found a few things that the wiki either doesn't cover or just gets blatantly wrong. In the wiki it states, when striking an enemy with a heavy attack with the Magistar, it emits a pulse that heals the wielder and all allies within a 15-meter radius for 5% of the damage dealt. That last part about the damage dealt doesn't matter for what we're talking about here because it changes the rule whenever we're dealing with a defense objective. Now some of you might have some questions about that, such as, do you need combo count for it to work? No. Does the timer reset on multiple strikes? Yeah. Where's the radius coming from? Through my testing, I found that it comes from you and not the enemy that's being stricken. And not only did I find that, I also found that the 15-meter radius in the wiki is an absolute lie. You're actually getting the 25-meter radius. And the cool part is, you can increase that radius with range mods such as Primed Reach or Spring-Loaded Blade, which is pretty friggin' cool. Moral of the story, wikis are made by people. People are typically stupid. So knowing all this, what's our team comp? The answer is I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I haven't really play tested it. But to make an educated guess, I'd say probably a Limbo with a 15-meter radius bubble. This is to make it harder for nullifiers to pop the bubble. And have a loot frame with max range running Silence. Then copy that for the other 2 people in the squad. Oh yeah, and make sure at least 1 Sanctity Magistar per group. The reason I recommend 2 groups is so they can be spread out between 2 different excavators. It's not worth it to run this mission if you don't have a full squad. This is because arbitration excavators take 80 seconds longer than normal excavators, effectively making the rotation times 3 minutes. And if you're not running a full squad, you might as well just double that time. Also, another thing worth mentioning, rotations are determined by how many excavations are complete, not how much cryotic you get like normal missions. But anyway, if you got a better team composition using all the stuff I mentioned in this video, or possibly more, go for it. I personally don't care all that much about excavations. Here's the healing and damage resistance info from the wiki. Other than all that, I don't really have much else to say about excavation. So the next subject is Defection. You know it, and you probably hate it, it's Defection. To start things off, the arbitration modifier for this mission is that you cannot res the NPCs once they go down, so protecting them is going to be one of your top priorities. Your other top priority is going to be making sure that the rotations actually go by fast. In fact, what are the rotation times for Defection? What? Alright, well that's pretty dang fast, considering it's just me and some random and we somehow got a sub 5-minute run. What's this gonna look like if we had an actual team set up to do this?
And boosters scattered throughout the ship are the only hope for survival. survivors have just reached the safety of our transport.
Alright, well that's roughly 2 minutes, and if you've played Defection any longer than the first rotation, you'll know that going past the third rotation, rotation times get even faster because there's more consoles to spawn the NPCs in from. And with that, it makes rotations a little bit shorter. While I was recording this, I also managed to get 2 squads extracted within 1 minute and 15 seconds. Which, in case you haven't figured it out already, 2 squads equals 1 rotation. So with that in mind, this effectively makes this one of the fastest arbitrations to do in the game. Which is kind of stupid to say because it's freaking Defection of all game modes. But hey, the numbers don't lie, and I guess I'm here to defend Defection now. I don't know how I got to this point. This is strange. And did I say new information? Because I kinda mean that literally. With the thorough amount of research I put into this topic, all I could find was a couple of Redditors over here who thought that Wisp was gonna be the end-all be-all for the mission, and this small YouTuber over here who actually discovered some of the strats that I discovered myself while making this video. So props to them for actually doing the legwork to find out some stuff. But let's get into what works. Let's start things off with Volt. Volt has the highest ceiling of potential for speeding up allies, and fortunately that does also work for defense targets. So needless to say, he's a pretty solid must-have if you're looking to make rotation times the best they can be. Wisp is good if you're looking to multitask, and what I mean by that is speeding up the defense targets as well as giving them an increased health bar with health regen. But the speed she gives off is a lot less powerful compared to Volt. But something worth mentioning about that is that her speed motes actually stack with Volt's speed. However, be aware, injecting defense targets with excessive amounts of speed may lead to game-breaking consequences. No, I'm not kidding. They literally clip through walls and teleport. But in most cases, it's nice to run both Wisp and Volt just for faster rotation times. But the funny thing is, you don't need to run Wisp in order to get healing. You could just still run Volt, as long as you're running a certain subsume ability and augment from a certain somebody. Honestly, I mentioned him enough in this video, so if you can't piece together where I'm getting with this, I'm not helping you. And one of the last things I feel like is worth mentioning is Dante's Overguard from his 2nd and 4th ability actually applies to defense targets. And as long as you're running enough casting speed, this is a pretty darn good way to keep the targets alive too, so yeah. Now for some useful advice on the frames I just mentioned. You should stat your Volt for a nice balance between duration, range, and strength, but prioritize strength just for the sake of the 2nd ability and the subsume ability that I highly recommend you use. Also, this should go without saying that as a Volt player, you should be making sure that your 2nd ability is applied to the extraction targets at all times. Just follow them around like you're a parent of 4 low attention span children that can run at Mach 10. And a pro tip for the Wisp players, try to find all the spawn locations for the extraction targets on points B and C. That way they're just sped up from spawn, and that should just go without saying why you should do that. And the last bit of advice I want to mention, make sure you have somebody ready to click on that stupid little console next to the life support tower as soon as it's available. The whole reason you're playing this game mode is for the speed of the rotation times. If you're not doing that, then what the heck are you playing Defection for? You weirdo. Next topic! Yeah, I forgot about this game mode too, but it's an arbitration, so we gotta talk about it. Infested Salvage is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is just keep those 3 consoles filled with serum pretty much at all times, or else you'll waste the console's health and also your rotation times. Speaking of which, the rotations are actually pretty freaking fast. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Consistently. To move on to arbitration modifiers, did you know that the wiki actually lies? Or more accurately, they're just outdated. You see, on this little piece of text I had lingering in the background, it says that the consoles have 15 times their normal health and they can't regenerate it. That's about half true. All they did was just reduce the health bar to just 2 times its regular size. And no, it still can't regenerate health. Onto another bit here that I found a little bit more interesting. It says over here that the less players you have in the mission, the faster the rotations. So I spent several hours testing this and coordinating schedules with friends just to see if this was actually true. Turns out it's not. But yeah, the rotation times are just 2 minutes and 30 seconds consistently, no matter the player count. Also, I should probably mention, for my testing, I pretty much just eyeballed it, so I don't know, maybe it's like 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Cry about it, I don't care. But yeah, just to move on, what frames should you be running? You were probably thinking Necros, right? Wrong. From my testing, which I also kind of eyeballed, I couldn't manage to actually duplicate any serum with his Desecrate ability. So as far as my knowledge goes, it just doesn't work. Just run whatever you would normally use in a normal survival mission and you should be good. That's all I pretty much got for this segment. Let's move on to the last one. I'm a big fan of Disruption, and it's not because it's easy and it's not because it's fast. It's because it's very unique, and some of you are probably wondering, why is it? Well, outside of arbitrations, disruptions are already inherently unique just because of the way their rotations work. And I know for a fact, a lot of people here don't really know how disruption rotations work. So sit up and listen closely, because by the end of this segment, I don't want to hear you guys saying, disruption rotations are confusing. Shut! Sorry in advance for all the people that know the basics about rotations, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page here. So to start off, what are rotations? A rotation is a reward pool that's tied to specific rounds in an endless mission type, to where if you complete the objective during that round, it will give you one item from that specific rotation loot pool. For example, you know when you're playing a defense mission and once you complete a round, it'll show a screen that asks if you want to continue or leave, and on the bottom of that screen it shows some rewards? Those are the rotation drops that you have gotten. Now to expand upon this, there are 3 different kinds of rotation pools with every endless mission type. Specifically the A rotation pool, the B rotation pool, and the C rotation pool. Each of these rotation pools have different items and different rarities to those items. Some rotation pools may be similar, but none are the same. And for the one creative individual in the second to front row wondering if resource drop chance boosters work to increase rarities, no, they don't. Nor do resource boosters help to double those. But good try though. To carry on, how can you tell which rotation you're on in a mission? It doesn't say it anywhere in the game. Well, outside of arbitrations, endless mission types go by the rotation pattern of AABC, and then it loops back. Now pop quiz. Let's say you've completed 6 rounds of a defense mission and you're still going. If you complete the objective again, what is the next rotation pool you will get loot out of? If you answered B, you're correct. Now let's move on. Arbitrations are unique in the way that they have a different rotation pattern. This pattern goes A, B, B, C, 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 C. In other words, past the 4th rotation, your reward pool will be limited to C rotations only. This is good in most cases because C rotations provide the most endo, but for some people looking for A and B rotation exclusive rewards, it's a bit harder for them to farm for those. And that's where disruptions come in. Disruption rotations are determined by what round you're on and your performance within that round. This chart I found on the wiki explains it perfectly. So let's say you successfully defended all 4 conduits in the first round, but in the second round, you are only able to defend 2 of them. That means you're going to get an A rotation reward. Oh yeah, and this chart is also accurate for arbitration and non-arbitration disruptions. So theoretically, if you really wanted something out of the B rotation of arbitration, all you have to do is just defend 1 or 2 conduits and then scrap the other 2. Now that I'm done explaining all of that, I'm going to go right back to using the words round and rotation synonymously again. Anyway, let's get back to other cool things about disruption. Disruption rotations are roughly around 3 minutes, which is pretty dang good. And heck, they can be a lot faster than that too. This is because rotation times are primarily dependent on key carriers. And how do you identify a key carrier? Well, typically they're larger, more standout units, and sometimes they can be Eximuses. Moving on from that, as long as a conduit hasn't been completed, keys for that conduit will drop from these key carriers. By the way, you can actually hold a key with your Warframe and your operator. So at maximum, each player can hold 2 keys at a time. So you can theoretically have 2 of each key, complete a wave, and then as soon as the next wave starts, just immediately slot in all those other keys, kill their Demolists, and then hopefully you should see the fastest rotation you could possibly get out of an arbitration. So it's just something to keep note of. As for Warframe picks, try and go for something fast like Wukong or Titania. And if you're looking to farm B rotations, bring a Nova with you, just so you can speed up the Demolists and make your rotations faster. Oh yeah, that also reminds me, crowd control abilities and status effects like Gloom and Cold work on Demolists. However, Demolists do have a nullifier bubble that pops up around them about every 6 seconds. Fortunately though, it doesn't get rid of status effects, so cold is still pretty useful. Also with gloom, if you're just standing outside the nullifier bubble, Demolists can't turn off the ability. So it's still a pretty good ability for keeping Demolists locked down. Last thing I want to cover, I don't think looting frames work for duping keys. So just focus your team comp on killing Demolists, being fast about it, and not dying. And that's all I pretty much had to say about Disruption, and that was the last mission on the chart, so I think we're done here. Unless... Actually, no. This is the part of the video where I would have talked about mirror defense, but as of this recording, they've already updated the wiki, and I'm pretty sure it's common knowledge at this point that mirror defense and a whole lot of other game modes were added to arbitrations. And listen, you know this screenshot here that I took? I took this on January 7th, 2024. It has been a whole year since I've started this video. And at the time I took this screenshot, mirror defense was in arbitration rotations. So by now, I would have talked about mirror defense, making a slight little jab at the wiki for not having the information updated, but that time's passed. So I'm just gonna give up on that for now. This video is long enough as it is. And for those wondering if the information in this video is still accurate just because it took so long, yeah, it still is. Including the part about Infested Salvage and Magistar. Seriously, I don't know how they haven't updated that yet. But yeah, don't worry. By the time this video is out, all this information should be correct. So I'm just gonna call this the end of the video. Okay, I'm gonna see how long I can go without scripting this. But no, yeah, freaking whole year of editing, and yeah, I'd say my editing skills have gotten a lot better during pretty much all of this. Like, you can just see the natural progression, so I'm pretty proud of that. Also, I'm just not the best at talking, like I will straight up admit that. The survival segment, holy crap, rewatching that for the end of the video, like I was, no. But yeah, sorry if you had to bear through that, but I promise you the rest of the video was better at it, as you could see. I'm glad you're actually here though. Yeah, fans are nice. People watching to the end of the video, I really appreciate that. I plan on cranking out more stuff, more videos in the future, but I plan on having a bit of a better schedule about that. But yeah, no. The reason this video took so long is because of frickin' like Helldivers 2 coming out pretty early in the year, and Space Marine 2, and just ultimately I was never really feeling like I wanted to edit during those times, so it took forever to get around to this. But yeah, got it done. Here it is. I'm happy about it. I can't think. I'm gonna go through some notes, see if there's anything else I want to talk about. So yeah, I learned a lot about arbitration, surprisingly. I kind of became an expert in my friend group over this. What I found really surprising, though, was how many times the wiki would just be flat out wrong on things, or just not updated. I kind of just expected it to be right all the time, but no, like, just lies. Especially that part with the Infested Salvage. That took forever. That took a long time to do. Also, very importantly, frickin' defense. I hated doing that. I didn't expect myself to, like, not like it as much as I did, but I just did not like it. Same with Excavation on top of that. I didn't expect Excavation to be so bad after the frickin' Limbo nerf. Oh my gosh. Those segments probably took up, like, around 30 to 50% of how long this actually took to make. So yeah, horrible. But yeah, I got it through. Over pretty much all of that though, I don't really have much here to say. I hope to see you guys in the future. Like the video if you liked it. If you're just here at this point, I'm very happy that you did. Unless you're like, I don't know, like hate watching, which is kind of surprising. This is literally my first video, like hating on a baby. But alright. Also, by the end of this, we should see, yep, there it is, sentence of the day. It's sentence of the day time. What do we got? Friendship is power. There we go. So, go ahead, get yourself a friend. They're cool. Bye-bye. Bye.